I'm here today with Stuart Halford, who's the CIO of Goodbody, a leading financial services firm based in Ireland. How are you doing today, Stuart?
I'm good.
So, Stuart, could you briefly, just for those who aren't intimately acquainted with IT, could you briefly describe your role at Goodbody?
Well, I'm the Chief Information Officer, so I'm ultimately responsible for the services that we provide clients and our internal staff, as well as various things such as cybersecurity or technology strategy. Ensuring our systems remain up and that they perform the way we'd expect them to. Because we're a regulated entity, we're regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland, there is a very strong focus around availability, security, continuity. And it's about, I suppose, finding that and the balance of, managing our cybersecurity risk with at the same time giving our employees the best tools that they have to be able to do their job and provide the services to our customers, and finding that balance between the two.
And I think really great to get that insight into, what actually happens in IT versus how people might perceive it. From your experience, though, as a CIO, how is IT perceived either by the business in Goodbody or by your employees?
I'd like to think that the perception of IT is quite good, and that we're perceived as a trusted partner, both in terms of driving our business strategy and supporting everyone. And that wasn't always the case. So we've lived through. I've been in the firm for 20 years in a variety of different roles, and I've been with Goodbody when we were a small entity within a much larger financial services firm. Mm-hmm. So I've got to experience, I suppose, life being a small player in a very large entity, where they're operating at scale, and the challenges that can bring, all the way through to where we are at the moment, where we're effectively an autonomous firm. So there's about 350 staff, and average managed services partnerships, but ultimately we're responsible for our day-to-day running. I suppose when you look at the perception of IT, really the key point in terms of the perception mm-hmm. is where the front face of IT, the people that deal with users on a day-to-day basis. So in our case, it would have been our service desk and our service support team. Mm-hmm. Because if you get that right, it's eminently helpful. But if you're doing everything right, but what the users see is a poor service, then it doesn't matter what good you're doing elsewhere. Like the trust in the relationship gets completely destroyed, and you end up with this very poor perception of IT, which doesn't, obviously it doesn't help us as IT professionals, but more so it doesn't really help the business, because what will then happen is if they stop engaging with you, then they stop communicating with you, and there'll be the problems, because there's always going to be problems in IT. There'll be the problems that you're aware of, because there'll be big blinking red lights, and they're the obvious problems. But separate to that, there's the smaller, the niggles that actually over time become significant problems, and you lose all visibility of that because people stop raising tickets, people stop engaging with you because they don't see the point. So we would have, I suppose, experienced that at one stage where we had an outsourced service desk. So the frontline engagement for our customers, for our staff, wasn't us. It wasn't IT. It was a third party that weren't as familiar with our systems, with our requirements, with our users. The perception of IT at that stage was very low. It was very poor. And when we were then divested away from that outsourced service desk, one of the first things we did is we took on our own service support team. And the difference that made to the perception of IT was massive. And that was the first point, I suppose, of our journey to get to where I'd like to think we are now. Like, we went through a big exercise of not just really engaging with our users in terms of putting in people where they could build a relationship with the staff and with our customers, or internal customers, but also like we would have actively gone out and created what we call the relationship management function, led by our service delivery manager, where we would go out and actively engage with users, even when there weren't problems, to just try and, I suppose, communicate what we were doing and try and tease out. So rather than waiting for people to log tickets, engage with them and tease out, well, what are the niggles? What are the things you're doing on a day-to-day basis where actually, yeah, it works, but it's because I've learned I have to click this 3 times and wiggle the mouse a little bit here, move that over there, and then the system starts working. Or the things that are the areas then that are causing them pain. So rather than focusing on, here's our new tools, go and use these, here's the new shiny thing, where are the actual pain points that you're experiencing, and is there anything we can actually do to help them? And that's over time, that's a process that's been invaluable to us, and it's made a huge amount of difference.
Would you say empathy plays a role here? Is empathy something you can have at your scale or at enterprise scale?
Empathy creates trust. And I think that trust creates engagement. Engagement creates productivity. One of the things that really stood out to me when we were going through this, like back again in February and March and April of last year, remote working is here to stay in some shape or form. We were fortunate in that we actually had the infrastructure available. We started rolling out Microsoft Teams and Zoom before COVID hit. And ironically, the challenges we had, or maybe not ironically, they weren't technical. It was all about driving adoption and getting to people to believe that actually this is the way forward, and that this is something that could actually work. So we would have had challenges internally at the time around, I suppose, people managing through presenteeism, people managing in the old command and control structure. That doesn't work anymore. Managers can't be constantly watching what their staff are doing. This, I believe, can enhance engagement, but it requires leaders to change the way that they operate and how they engage with staff. And this ultimately does hook back to empathy, because if you have the empathy and you build that trust, and then you start managing from a productivity perspective, it's like, right, we need to hit this goal. We need to get this solution in, or we need to solve this problem. We need to get this sale. Now, if you want to work on this at 4 o'clock in the morning, in your pajamas, or you want to go for a run and think about and do this, that, and the other, as long as you reach that goal, we focus on the end results, then I think that's great, and that's the way this can all work. Because you can't sit over someone and say, you need to be at your desk from 9 to 5. I'm going to be logging the keystrokes on your laptop, and I'm going to have a camera watching you the entire time. That's not going to work. You're going to end up a bit like that episode of The Simpsons with Homer Simpson, where you had the thing just hitting the keyboard. I know this all comes back to the question of empathy. And again, like I say, empathy, I think it drives trust and drives engagement. It makes, if you've got staff that you've built this trust with, and I've experienced this through managers and leaders I would have had in the past, and I'm sure everyone has these. There's the ones where you'll do your job, and then there's the ones where you'll go the extra mile for them, because not because of some extrinsic driver, be it money or stress or whatever. They do work, but they only work short term. But like from an intrinsic motivation, whereas actually you want to do it because you care. You understand where things are going. You understand why you're doing it, because maybe it's, you've been given the context and you care. And, that care can't come from apathy. The only place it can come from, I believe, is empathy, because you've built this relationship with your manager, with your leader, whoever it might be. And those are the ones that I found in the past. And what I hope I bring to what I do is, that common goal and that caring and wanting to go above and beyond. And that's what's going to drive productivity. And that's the thing more than apathy or fear or anything else that I think will truly drive productivity and ultimately drive end results. So it's not just being nice for the sake of being nice. Ultimately, it does impact the bottom line.
From your position as CIO, is empathy and IT the future?
I can't imagine us being effective without it. In order for us to be successful, we ultimately support the business strategy. We don't do technology for technology's sake. So we've got to really understand where the pain points, what do the business need, and then what additional over and above can we bring to the table. So, in order to do that, you want to be at the table early. You want to be part of actually framing the solution. And again, you get that through listening, through engagement, through helping, and all these things that I would kind of argue, are part of empathy and are empathetic qualities.
Stuart, thank you very much. This has been enlightening for me, and it sounds like if we keep empathy at the center of everything we do, then the future's bright.
Nice way of looking at it.